Husband said he misses his old life without me at a family reunion, so I left. Now he wants another chance. It was supposed to be a celebration, a joyous family reunion with his relatives I had grown fond of over the years. The smell of barbecued chicken and homemade pies wafted through the air, and laughter echoed in the spacious backyard of his family's old house. Ethan had insisted we attend, his hand gently wrapped around mine as we arrived. But I could feel the tension building in him. He was distant, as if there was something brewing beneath the surface that he wasn't telling me. When we entered the house, his sister, Marissa, rushed over to greet us with a warm hug. "You two finally made it. It's been ages since we've had everyone together," she said, her voice full of excitement. Ethan smiled faintly and squeezed my hand, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. As the evening wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I tried to focus on the conversations around me, the jokes, the reminiscing about childhood memories. I even made small talk with his parents and cousins, who were all happy to see us. But each time I glanced over at Ethan, he was withdrawn, barely engaging in the conversations. His eyes kept wandering over to the corner of the room, where his old friends from high school were gathered, laughing as they reminisced about their past. "Claire, you doing okay?" his mom asked, noticing my unease. I smiled, trying to hide the discomfort. "Yeah, just adjusting to all the chaos," I replied, trying to keep my tone light. But then, the moment came, the one that would change everything. We were sitting at the large dinner table, plates piled high with food, when Ethan's uncle, Greg, jokingly said, "Ethan, you've been so quiet tonight. You used to be the life of the party. What's going on with you, buddy?" Everyone laughed, and I could feel the attention shift to Ethan. He paused for a moment, looking at his plate as if contemplating something. Finally, he lifted his head, and in a low voice that only those closest could hear, he said something that shook me to my core. "I miss my old life," he blurted out. "The one before Claire and everything. I miss the freedom, the spontaneity. Just being able to do whatever I wanted without having to worry about anyone else." The room seemed to freeze. The air went thick with silence, and I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. I looked at Ethan, searching his face for any sign of a joke, but there was none. His eyes were distant, his words hanging in the air like a cold fog. My heart began to race as I struggled to process what he had just said. His family, sensing the shift, exchanged awkward glances, unsure of how to respond. His sister, Marissa, shot me a quick apologetic look, but I couldn't focus on anyone else at that moment. All I could hear was the ringing in my ears and the sound of his words reverberating in my mind. "I miss my old life." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something, anything, just to release the pain building up inside me. But I kept it together, swallowing hard as I fought back the tears. Ethan seemed to notice my silence and shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Claire, I didn't mean it like that. I'm just feeling a little overwhelmed lately. All this responsibility, all the commitments. Sometimes I wish I could just go back to how things were before." I could feel my hands trembling, and I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. I couldn't breathe. Go back to how things were before? Before me? Before we had built this life together? My mind was swirling with emotions I could barely comprehend. How could he say that? How could he miss his old life? Didn't he see the sacrifices I had made for us? Didn't he see what we had built together? "Ethan," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You really mean that, don't you? You really wish things were different? You miss your old life, without me?" His face paled, and I saw the regret flashing in his eyes, but it was too late. The damage was done. "I didn't mean it like that," he said quickly, his voice rising in panic. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just thinking out loud." But I couldn't hear him. The words were out, and they were etched in my mind, indelible. I stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor, and looked at him one last time. "I need to go," I said, my voice shaking as I forced myself to keep it together. I can't do this. I can't be here, pretending everything is fine, when you just told me you miss your old life. I'm not going to be someone you're settling for. Ethan's face twisted in confusion and regret as I turned and walked toward the door. I could feel the weight of every eye on me, but I didn't care. I couldn't stay another second in that house, surrounded by his family, pretending everything was okay. My heart was breaking, and I wasn't sure it would ever heal from those words. I left the reunion without looking back. I didn't care how dramatic it seemed, how everyone would talk about it afterward. The truth was, I felt like a stranger in my own marriage. I felt like the life I had worked so hard to build had been so easily dismissed by him. And I couldn't stand it. The days after I left were a blur. I stayed with my best friend, Megan, trying to put together the pieces of my shattered heart. I didn't respond to Ethan's texts or calls. I couldn't face him. I didn't know if I could ever face him again. Every time I thought of going back, I heard his words again in my mind, I miss my old life. Ethan tried calling repeatedly, but I refused to pick up. I couldn't do it. I couldn't let him in again so easily. Not after he made me feel like I wasn't enough. Then, a week later, he showed up at Megan's apartment. My heart sank when I saw him standing at the door, his face drawn with exhaustion. He hadn't shaved in days, his clothes wrinkled, his eyes tired. I had never seen him like this before. "Claire," he said, his voice soft, almost pleading. "Please, can we talk?" I hesitated for a moment, my emotions still raw. I didn't want to see him. But a part of me, the part that still loved him, wanted to hear him out. "Come in," I said quietly, stepping aside to let him enter. He walked in, looking around the small apartment, clearly uncomfortable. I know I don't deserve a chance to explain myself, but I'm asking for one. Just one chance. I crossed my arms, trying to steady my breath. "You've got 5 minutes." Ethan nodded, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "I was stupid, Claire. I said something I didn't mean. I don't want my old life. I don't miss it. I miss you. I miss us. I miss everything we had before I let fear and doubt take over." I raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "You miss me? Is that what you're telling me?" "I do," he said, his voice breaking. "I was wrong, Claire. I was selfish. I let myself get caught up in the idea of freedom, of doing what I wanted without responsibility. But I realized that the freedom I wanted, it wasn't worth losing you. I would rather have this life, with you, than anything else. I need you in my life, Claire. Please. I made a huge mistake. And I will spend every day making it right, if you'll just give me the chance." I stared at him, my heart aching. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to forgive him. But I wasn't sure if I could forget those words, if I could ever go back to the way things were before. Ethan stood there, his face etched with worry, his eyes desperate for some sign that I would allow him to explain. He took a slow step toward me, as if afraid I might step back or slam the door shut between us. Ethan stood there, his face etched with worry, his eyes desperate for some sign that I would allow him to explain. He took a slow step toward me, as if afraid I might step back or slam the door shut between us. "Claire," he said, his voice trembling, "I know you can't just forget what I said, and I don't expect you to. But I swear to you, I was wrong. I let my own fears cloud my judgment. I do love you. I've always loved you." I shook my head, the words catching in my throat. "You can't just say that and expect me to believe it. You told me that you missed your old life, the one where you were free, where you didn't have to be tied down to anything. You told me you didn't want this anymore." His face went pale, and he took another step closer. "Please don't remind me of that," he said, his voice breaking. "I don't know why I said it. I don't know what was wrong with me. I was overwhelmed, Claire. I was confused, thinking about all the things I thought I missed, thinking I missed them. But what I was really missing was you. It was always you. It's always been you. I crossed my arms over my chest, the hurt still fresh in my chest, my pulse still hammering. But you did say it, Ethan. You said it in front of your family, my family. How am I supposed to forget that? How am I supposed to believe that you want this life with me when it felt like you were telling me you'd rather be anywhere else? He lowered his gaze, clearly ashamed. I was a fool. I didn't realize what I had until I almost lost it. You are my life, Claire. I don't want anyone else. I don't want my old life, and I certainly don't want to go back to that version of myself who was too scared to see how lucky he was to have you. I need you, Claire. I need you in my life. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. But what if I don't need you anymore? I whispered, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. His eyes widened in horror. Please don't say that. I would never survive it. I know I hurt you, and I hate myself for it. But I swear, I will do whatever it takes to prove to you that I'm sorry. I'll change, Claire. I'll be the man you deserve. Just give me a chance. I looked away, my chest tightening as I tried to hold back the tears that threatened to fall. I don't know if I can do this anymore, Ethan. I don't know if I can go back to feeling like the second choice, like I'm just here because you settled. I don't want to feel like that anymore. God, Claire, I would never settle for you. Never. He stepped forward, his hands reaching for mine, his touch gentle but firm, as if he were desperate to ground me. I'm not perfect, and I've made mistakes. But I chose you, Claire. I chose you, every day, since the moment we met. I was just too blind to see it then. And now I know, deep in my soul, that there's no one else for me. There's never been anyone else but you. I looked into his eyes, searching for the truth in his words, but doubts still lingered in the corners of my mind. And how do I know you won't feel this way again? What if, in a few months, you start feeling like you're settling again? What if you start wanting that old life back? I won't, he said quickly, his voice firm, almost pleading. I swear on everything I love, I won't. I don't want that life anymore. I don't want to go back to the guy who was too afraid to commit, too afraid to admit how much he needed someone. You were always the one. You are everything I want, everything I need. I closed my eyes, my mind racing, heart aching with the overwhelming weight of the decision. I don't know, Ethan. I need time. I need to figure out if I can trust you again. I need to know if I can really forgive you for the way you made me feel. He nodded, his expression softening with understanding. I get it. You don't owe me anything right now. But I'm asking you for a chance to prove that I can be the man you deserve. I'll wait as long as it takes, Claire. I'll wait for you. Just don't shut me out. Please. My heart felt like it was being pulled in two different directions. A part of me wanted to take him back, to believe that he truly meant every word. I remembered all the good times we had shared, the way he used to look at me, the way he held me close when I was scared or uncertain. I remembered our laughter, our plans for the future. But then there was the hurt. The way he had made me feel so small, so insignificant, at the family reunion. I couldn't just erase that. I couldn't forget the look in his eyes when he said it, the way he made me question everything we had built together. I need time, Ethan, I whispered again, my voice barely audible. Please give me that. I need to think. I need to figure out if I can forgive you. If we can rebuild what's been broken. His face fell, and I saw the struggle in his eyes, how badly he wanted to fix things, to make it all right again. But he didn't push me. He just nodded, accepting my request. Okay, he said quietly, his voice full of sorrow. I'll give you the time you need. But I won't give up on us, Claire. I won't give up on you. I watched him for a moment, my heart heavy with everything that had happened. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to go back to the way things were, to feel the warmth of his love without the sting of doubt. But it would take time. It would take more than words, it would take actions, every single day, to prove to me that he wasn't just telling me what I wanted to hear. "I don't know where this goes, Ethan," I said softly. "But I'm not ready to give up on us either. Not yet." And with that, I closed the door between us, figuratively, not physically, but leaving it slightly ajar, allowing the possibility of healing, of forgiveness, to creep in. Only time would tell if Ethan would prove that he could truly change, that he could really show me that I was the one he chose, and not just someone he was settling for. But for now, the door was open just a crack. And that, perhaps, was a start.